You're listening to This Week in America with Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. Great to have you with us on the program. And back with us on the program today is Dr. LeslieBeth Wish, a nationally recognized licensed clinical psychotherapist, honored for her pioneering work in love, career, happiness, and success. The National Association of Social Workers has named her on their list of the 50 who have contributed to the profession. Her latest self-help research-based books are Smart Relationships and The Love Adventures of Almost Smart Cookie. Her surprising findings inspired her to co-write her next book about intuition, the topic of today's program, one of the cornerstones of happiness and success. In fact, your story about listening or not listening to your intuition could be featured in the next book. If you go to Dr. Wish's website, which is lovevictory.com, you click on the top Intuition Stories, and possibly your story can be used in the next book. Dr. Wish, welcome back to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so happy that you are willing to talk about intuition, because when I say that word, a lot of people just roll their eyes like it's woo-woo stuff.
Well, yeah, and you say that to some people, and they're like, I really don't understand that. Let's talk about intuition. Exactly what is that? Because, yeah, some people go, that sounds like voodoo-ish. What is intuition?
Well, I don't want to go into long, brain descriptions and why it happens, but basically intuition involves the following. So your listeners, I want you to kind of listen to this mini checklist and see how many of these things you have. Okay, what is intuition? Number one, the ability to zoom in and focus on what's really important. Number two, the ability to get rid of distractions. It could be the TV being on, looking at the car in front of you when you're driving, listening to someone else, looking at what they're wearing, listening to other thoughts in your head for the day. You are able to zoom in and instantly get rid of distractions so that you can pick up the most important information. Number three, you are able to be mindful enough so that you can sense when you are getting an intuitive cue, and we can go into that more. And then the last most important one is you trust your intuition. You don't think to yourself, am I just kind of going crazy, or the planets aligned in a different way or something? But really intuitive people trust those signals.
Now, is intuition something, are we born with that, or is it something that we can actually develop?
The answer is yes and yes. Some people just have better intuition. Why is that? That would be like a whole another show on brain development. But basically, what highly intuitive people have is the ability, perhaps the nature side of the nature-nurture argument, to really, really concentrate and take no distractions and get rid of those and zoom in on focusing. And they're also very people savvy. On the nurture side, though, yes, you absolutely can develop it.
You're listening to This Week in America. Our guest on the program is Dr. LeslieBeth Wish. Her website is lovevictory.com. A lot of great information at the website, including on today's topic, which is intuition. It's interesting, your background. You said that basically from the age of 3 on, you were raised by a very remarkable lady, Daisy, who had the ability to teach you how to read other people. She had that ability herself, and she was able to tune you into other people. Talk a little bit about that, because it appears from a very early age, you really learned, you might not even have known at the time it was intuition, but you were able to sort of follow that inner voice.
Absolutely. I was blessed with an inner editor, that little voice that says, don't listen to this person, or this comment coming from this person should not be trusted because it's coming from their own, insecurities. Of course, when I was 3 or 4 or 5 years old, I didn't know that big word, insecurities. But what Daisy would do after I met a new person or a person came to the house to meet my parents, Daisy would take me aside and she'd say, what do you think about Mrs. Green or Mr. Blue? And I'd say, I don't like him, Daisy. And she'd say, why? And I would come up with, the words of a 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old, not, 5-syllable words, but I would come up with something. And Daisy would say to me, what animal does he remind you of? Or when you look at that woman and listen to her, what animal comes to mind? And, little kids don't know a lot about animals. So, I would say, oh, a big pig or a bull or a really pretty bird. So she was fine-tuning me to connect my feelings and my thoughts and my head and my heart all at the same time, which is one of the main steps that intuitive people do almost automatically, but you can learn to do that. Never volunteer to separate your head from your heart. People ask me, should I fall in love with my head or my heart? And boy, you better get both of them on the same page.
Well, it's interesting because you've written about this and a lot of great information, blogs at the website lovevictory.com. Intuition and relationships, and how important that is to be able to read that person. In fact, you've got a quiz on there, and a lot of the quiz revolves around body language. Is body language a good key for us to use it in terms of intuition? Is that part of the process?
Definitely. I call it the face and space attention. So a couple of things you want to look at on a person's face. Take a look at this part of them, particularly if they don't have any Botox. I have no Botox anywhere. So you want to see if this is wrinkled and crinkled. That means, it could mean that they are being judgmental of you. Or on the other side, it could mean that they're pondering what you're thinking. This is when your intuition kicks in, so that you know whether someone's being judgmental and critical, really kind of tilting their chin and feeling superior to you, or when you experience it as someone really thinking. The other thing you want to look for on their face is watch their mouths. Do they have a fake smile? I can't fake a fake smile. It's really hard, but those
yes.
awful flashes,
yes.
You also want to pay attention to whether their mouth looks like a horizontal line, going straight across their mouth. You want to look for that because it might mean that they're holding back anger, discomfort, anxiety, or disapproval of you. So watch a person's face. Watch where their head is turning when you are talking. You want someone to have their eyes roughly on your whole face. And the other thing I tell people to pay attention to is space. Is someone too close to you that you feel suffocated? Is someone too close to you because they want to make you feel so special and lock in on your eyes? So many women fall for that, and they feel like the whole room has disappeared and they're the only ones there. Wow, I would be really wary of that feeling, because that sense of feeling like the one, you are not the one in that situation. The person moving their space towards you and taking over your mind and your attention is really wanting to be the one. So that extra charming person could be your next nightmare of a domineering person. So pay attention to face and space.
It would seem like a lot of intuition is based on first impressions. Is that accurate?
Yes and no. Now think about this for a second. Have you ever had a bad day? Oh my gosh, I've had so many bad moments. Have you ever misspoken and just would love to lasso those words back in?
Yes.
So, that just happens to all of us, and you misspeak. Oh, I can remember a workshop I gave where I misspoke, and if I could have just, put, those words back into the garbage can and erased them totally, but you can't. So I would say trust your instincts, but if there is that in between, like you don't know whether to go out on a date with this person again, or whether to be friends with them or do work with them together as a colleague, then you might want to give a second chance of being with that person and seeing whether your intuitions and your assessments are correct.
So I can sort of taint your judgment at that point, but you really don't want to draw any rash conclusions until you've given them several opportunities. And I guess it's only fair from your standpoint, you really need more information, a larger body of work before you can make a determination.
Exactly. But some of the most important steps in trusting your intuition goes back to, and for your listeners, what I'm doing is holding up a toy magic wand. How much do you discount your intuition and think it belongs in that magical fairy tale world or that woo-woo outer planet psychic world? And it doesn't. Albert Einstein, the world famous scientist, And William James, a world-famous psychologist, are amongst really well-known people who said that intuition is so important because it is one of the cornerstones of good decision making. You have to make snap judgments really, really quickly sometimes. So if you don't have that ability to trust those feelings, then you may not be making smart decisions and you might be going against that gut instinct.
You're listening to This Week in America. Back with us on the program, Dr. LeslieBeth Wish, a life advice columnist, an award-winning and nationally recognized licensed clinical psychotherapist, working on a new book. It's based on intuition, and she would love to have your input. If you go to our website, lovevictory.com, you can share your story about listening or not listening to your intuition. Could be featured in the next book, or other books are available on her website and Amazon as well. Smart Relationships and the Love Adventures of Almost Smart Cookie. Information, and you can link on directly at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Talking on this program about intuition, and you mentioned as you were going through the key list at the beginning, mindfulness. Is mindfulness another word for intuition?
No, mindfulness, I would use the word awareness. Let's think about intuition. I'm a very intuitive person, and I most often receive my intuitive cues as a thud coming from outside me against the collarbone. So what you want to do is think about the answer to this question. I want you to ask yourself, how do I usually receive my intuitive sensations? Some people feel it as a thought in their head. Other people feel it as an external force, which is how it affects me. I really feel that there's something outside of me pushing on me. Or do you hear something? Do you hear a little voice in your head saying, this person's a jerk, or don't go on this idea? Or do you feel it literally in your gut? And there's all other kinds of ways, but those are the top ways. So the first thing you want to do is to get mindful of how you receive your intuitive messages and pay attention to them. Don't discount them.
It's interesting. In fact, you've written about turning on your awareness lights, about your observations of you and others. Explain awareness lights and how we can turn those on and make those effective for us.
And that goes back to my emphasis on focusing. Intuitive people are able to focus. Think of it as I'm picking up a pair of binoculars, okay, for those of you who are only listening. When you've got a pair of binoculars on, you know what you're doing. You're really focusing on something. Or how about when you use your camera to focus on a certain aspect of the street or people or any activity? And that's really what you want to do. So that's your first step. Focus. What am I paying attention to? And if you don't know, when you turn on your intuitive lights, here's what you can do to ask yourself. These are great lessons that I learned from Daisy. What animal or what dog does this person remind me of? I love using dogs because they come in so many different breeds. There's a world of difference in personality type from a Chihuahua to a Basset Hound. So what kind of animal does this person remind me of? Secondly, you might want to ask yourself, how much do I feel I trust this person? Would I recommend one of my friends to fix up with this person? Would I recommend that my friends trust this person? So step outside yourself a little bit, get a wee bit more objectifying, and see what you can learn, because those are great ways to turn up the lights on your intuition.
Why is it that it seems like, and maybe it doesn't, but it does in my case, I look back, that intuition is usually right. Sometimes it's actually a better predictor of what's going to happen than what we would consider rational thinking. Is intuition usually accurate?
No, and that's why it's so important to get mindful. And that's why it's so important to use your dates if you are in the dating world. Use your dates not to find the one or your soulmate or Mr. and Miss Right. Rather, use your date as a forum and as a proving ground for you to test your observations so that on the next date, and I do recommend second dates unless it's just really awful, horrendous, but on your second date, use it to test and assess your pre-assumptions. What are you revising? Because your goal is to build your trust in your judgment, and that is cornerstone for intuition. So sometimes you can trust your intuition, but sometimes you can't because you discount it or because you are battling away those messages that say, this is hocus pocus stuff. I'm a logical person. I use my head. I shouldn't listen to this. This is, a little too out there. Or perhaps your parents sent you the message that you are not to be believed or valued or trusted in the family. Maybe they accused you of being the maverick, the rebel, or the not smart one. And it's really horrible how those childhood messages get into your mindset, and that gets in the way of trusting yourself because you haven't been taught how to value yourself.
Dr. LeslieBeth Wish, our guest on This Week in America. Her website is lovevictory.com. Information there on her books, on the new book she's writing on intuition and how you can be a part of it. Great information. You can sign up for the free newsletter, a blog, a lot of great information there. Very helpful at the website lovevictory.com. So what you're really saying is intuition is not really a snap judgment, and intuition actually can take a while to evolve.
Definitely. I could not have said it better. Absolutely. You need to know whether you really are able to be attuned to your sensing of something. You also need to know whether you've developed that ability to trust it. So you can develop it over time. And some of us were just luckily blessed to have a daisy in their life and some of the nature aspects of having some kind of good baseline genes for being more intuitive.
And you mentioned before sort of this voice in your head that people get, and it's like just a bad feeling. Where does that voice come from? Is that just like experiences coming back? Is it subconscious? Where is that voice coming from that's sort of giving us that initial guidance?
That is the experience of your brain thinking instantaneously and assessing instantaneously. It's kind of what pilots have to do, people in the armed forces, police. There's so many professions that have to rely on people with great instant instincts. So that's what we're developing. Very, very important. And so that voice is your brain's way of speaking to you. And some people hear it as a voice. Some people see words. I've had lots of clients see words. For me, as I told you before, I get this external force that prevents me from doing something. Like I'll be going out the door to do an errand, and all of a sudden, some force, it almost feels like walking into a bed spring and something's just stopping you. And instantly what I do is I know that that's a warning, because my intuition always comes in the form of a warning. Other people get things that are positive, like do this today, or call someone, or check on someone. But mine are always warnings. And so what you also need to do when you have already developed great intuition is that you then need to ask yourself, what event or person are these intuitive signals telling me about? Because you can have an intuitive reaction, but not be able to connect it with an actual event. So that's much more advanced. But some people are able to do that also very quickly. An image comes to mind or a sound comes to mind. And what I did when I was going out of the house and I got stopped by this external force, I said, okay, what am I doing? I'm on my way to do an errand. It probably has something to do with my errand. And I stop, I close my eyes. Sometimes I have to put my hands on my ears to block out external sounds. And I close my eyes so that I'm not looking at all the things in my garage. And I am just really, really turning down the possibility of being distracted, and I am focusing. It's picking up those binoculars again, or focusing your camera and thinking, what's coming across my mind? And what often happens to me is then I get a warning that says, don't take this road, go on this road to your errand. And I am now batting 1,000. I have never been wrong. I have to take a different road, and then I read on the news, on the local news that night, that there was an accident on that street. So you really need to work on fine-tuning it so that you can connect it with an actual event or person.
More information on your intuition available at the website lovevictory.com. Our guest on the program has been Dr. LeslieBeth Wish. She would love to have your stories. You can go to the website and go to the Intuition Stories and leave some information, possibly be part of her new book. A fascinating discussion. I think I learned something more about how to use intuition and to be able to listen to the voices or the external forces that are bombarding us when we're entered into a new situation. Doctor, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us on the program.
Thank you so much for having me. And I am so appreciative of being here. And I'm glad that I had a chance to give some new information, not only to your listeners, but to you as well.
Well, you've said so much, and I wish I would have listened to my voice the other day when I was getting out of the car. It's very cold here, and I decided to run in, grab a newspaper, and I have this voice saying, don't leave the car running, turn it off, go inside, get the paper. And of course, I go inside, get the paper, left the car running, came out, and the keys and left inside the running car. And I had to wait for my wife to come pick me up. And and my wife has reminded me that about hourly for the last 3 days, my stupidity in doing that. So that voice is saying, you really shouldn't do this, but I did it anyway. And I know better than that. So follow your intuition. Yes. Yeah. It's like, okay, I'm smarter than that inner voice today. And it turned out I wasn't. So in fact, I'm going to put that in the form of an email, send it to you for the next book. So we will see if we get that included in the next book.
That's a great story. And what would be really helpful and inspiring to the readers of this book is talk about why you discounted that. Did you get into that? Oh, that's baloney trap that it's, out there woo-woo. I'm raising my little magic wand again.
Yes.
Because that's what most people do. They go, oh, that's just nuts.
Yeah, this is real life. I know better. And then I'm waiting for my wife to come pick me up. So that's my intuition story. Our guest on the program, Dr. LeslieBeth Wish. Her website is lovevictory.com. You're listening to This Week in America, our website, thisweekinamerica.us.